"You're the one to blame for your mama leaving me," he said, pulling off his shirt. "You look just like her and that old husband of hers. Every time I see you, I see him. And I see her." He approached me, stinking of whiskey, and I prayed he'd stop hitting me. I struggled to stay away from him, but he grabbed my hair. I knew better than to hit back or fight. "You can't even wrestle, you loser." He wrapped his furry, putrid forearm under my chin and squeezed. "Punk, tell me again where she's at." "She's dead. She's dead," I wailed. "She needed help. You got her on drugs." "That's right, she's dead, that bitch." Releasing me, I scrambled to the couch. He looked at me, grinning. "I like it when you say she's dead. They took her health insurance and kicked her to the curb 'cause she was poor. Made her come back to me. You like it because you did it to her." I sneered and pushed my hair out of my eyes. He laughed and found his bottle of booze. "She was mine, but you are a useless fucker." "Yeah, you know I did it, and I know, but the court thinks it was suicide. They don't care anyway. She had no money for a good lawyer. Good for me too." He was momentarily distracted by the television, and I took that opportunity to bolt for the door. He laughed and took a swig of whiskey. "Go ahead, punk. Go ahead and get high, just like your mother. The government or police won't help you either. You are disposable like all us poor white trash who voted for that lying fuck. Go ahead and go report me. They will haul your ass away because you're a fucking loser. You think they would believe you over me?" He laughed. "I watch Dateline. I know how shit works for our kind of people." "Just like your mother. Just like your mother." The words bounced around my scattered brain as I stumbled carelessly down the rotting porch. I wasn't like her, I wasn't dead. I ran around the back of the trailer that was far out on some remote tract of land near a creek. Hunks of auto remains littered the area, disintegrating in the cool autumn air. I wish my dad wasn't dead too. He was shanked in prison over cigarettes. I'm kinda glad he was dead because I know he'd just disappoint me and let me down. Dead, I could pretend. And make up a good guy who cared. Or who would have been rehabilitated and get out. Then he would be the dad I needed. Or am I kidding? I walked down to the junk pile behind my stepfather's deteriorating single wide. I climbed through an old pickup truck and sat in the torn seat. "Charlie?" I called. "Charlie?" Feeling the familiar snag of Charlie's small claws on my pants, he climbed from beneath the seat and swiftly up my body. His white fur rubbed across my neck, and he shoved his pink nose into my ear. I picked up the rat and snuggled his face to mine. After a few minutes, I put him on the dashboard and pulled a joint from my shirt pocket. Charlie wandered around as I lit the jib and took several hits. Smoke coated my lungs and seeped slowly through my teeth and nostrils. I gave him some crackers I stole. I calmed down significantly, and as the world slowed, I took another drag. Hours passed before I dared enter the trailer again. He lay sleeping, passed out, on the living room floor. He looked like a stranded elephant seal. I crept through the trailer, hoping to make it to bed before he woke up and saw me. He stirred and I froze like a statue, but he saw me. "You trying to sneak in, fucker?" He was too drunk to get up. "I ought to kick your ass. Don't think I didn't see you out there with that fucking rat. I ought to kill both you sons of bitches. Kill both you." He fell asleep again. I looked at that snoring drunk pig. I could kill him so easily right now. I could take the lamp or his bowling ball and smash his skull into a billion pieces. But I was too afraid, convinced he would find a way to get even from beyond the grave. I ran to my room and locked the door. I was utterly alone in the world except for Charlie. Things had been quiet all day. He had kept clear of me and even went out of his way to be cordial. I know he didn't get a check because everyone I knew had been cut off from any assistance. I guess people didn't realize you get what you vote for. I was too young to vote. But they all seemed to not care about any of us. I got free food from the church when I could make the long walk. But he was too quiet and he smiled too much. It was at times like this I feared him most because I knew the volcano simmered. "Hey loser," he said with a grin. "Do me a favor, go down to the junk pile and bring me a few tomatoes out of my garden. I'm going to make me a sandwich." Without a second thought and always welcoming a chance to leave the trailer, I went down to the old truck. The garden was a weed-infested jumble of wild tomatoes and pumpkins that had seen better days. I stepped through the knee-high weeds, carefully scanning for ripe tomatoes. As I reached to pick one that was round and full, I noticed a patch of snow-white fur lying in the nearby scrub. My heart sank. Charlie? I knelt by the rat, crushed and half-buried in the garden. I felt lost and scared as I looked at Charlie. Suddenly, hopelessness shook me to my soul. I couldn't go on. I couldn't endure another day. The sight of Charlie made me want to die. Curiously beautiful, fan-like mushrooms had taken root in his dead flesh. Their woody surfaces were ridged and seeped clear liquid. Charlie could have only been dead 2 days at the most, but his body was nearly flat and empty. The mushrooms seemed to have completely depleted his innards, growing and feeding until all sustenance was spent. Perhaps they were poisonous? I hope so. Blindly, I reached for the mushrooms and began pulling them from Charlie's body. I shoved them into my mouth and quickly swallowed. I was ready to see my mom and dad again. Fuck this world. Although the clear liquid clung to my tongue and burned the roof of my mouth, it wasn't painful. I smelled roses and lilacs. My eyes started to cloud up, itch and run. Then the colors came. Colors I didn't even have names for. I hoped for death, but instead it seemed I was getting high. Really fucking high. These were no ordinary mushrooms, nor were they natural psychotropic mushrooms. I had eaten enough to know the difference. It was rapturous and frightening all in the same instance. I saw colors, smelled fabulous fragrances, and my skin tingled as if it was leaping off my body. The high was so clear, my senses blossomed all at once and I could feel myself spinning. I couldn't tell which way was up and fell to the ground, landing on the tomatoes. Seeds exploded out of their skins and onto my shirt. As I lay in the garden, I heard my stepfather screaming unrecognizably. When I didn't answer, he came into the garden, picked me up by my shirt, shook me, dropped me to the ground, and kicked me twice, once in the head and once in the thigh. Yet I felt nothing. I giggled. The high wore off quickly. I began to recognize his words. He said Charlie's name as he grabbed some tomatoes off a nearby vine. He taunted and laughed, joking about Charlie's death. I don't want no rats eating my tomatoes. He laughed to himself. Charlie. I yelled as I got up off the ground. You killed Charlie? Remnants of the intense high made me stumble. Locating a rusted piece of pipe near one of the old truck carcasses, I rushed my stepfather. He was startled by my quickness. I hit him hard and swift across the temple. He wobbled, more dazed and startled than anything, and he stumbled, spilling the tomatoes as he fell. I stood over the stunned man, the elephant seal, hitting him over and over again. He couldn't get up. My blows came too fast, too furiously. With great effort, I stopped. I didn't want to. Let him feel the fucking pain for once. Blood poured from wounds all over his head and his eyes were closed. I knelt to feel his neck for a pulse. He was still alive. I realized what I had done. I trembled, hands shaking. I was no better than any of them. Suddenly, I found myself craving the mushrooms. I took a small piece from Charlie's nearby corpse and chewed it. Again, the taste filled me with ecstasy. But it was different than before. There was no way to describe it. No one had invented those words yet. I put the pipe on the ground and took my stepfather's feet. I pulled him from the garden, then carefully propped him against the rotting, disintegrating truck. In the cab there was old, relatively strong rope. I retrieved my pipe from the garden. I punched several holes in the truck's thin, rusty fenders, 2 feet to the left and right of my stepfather's bleeding body. He was stirring, as was the drug in my veins. I tied one end of the rope to his left wrist, threaded it through the hole and pulled. His left arm rose in the air, pinned against the fender. Then I tied the rope to the cab. As I tied his right hand, my stepfather's head rolled to one side, and his eyes opened through a constant stream of blood. What are you doing? Get me to the hospital, you little fucker. His words now slurred together badly, worse than being drunk. This was brain damage. I pulled his right hand into place and tied off the rope. My interest in his goodwill had disintegrated long ago, just like my mother and father. Just like love. Just like fear. Just like the rusted cars. And just like Charlie. Shut up. I grabbed my pipe and straddled him. You're not so tough now, are you, you big piece of shit? I'm dying. Let me up, please. Help me. No, I'm afraid Charlie wouldn't like that. Mom wouldn't like that either. Guess I'm not such a little fucker after all. I took the rusty pipe in both hands and rammed it against his neck, snapping the cartilage as I pushed harder and harder. He whined pathetically but couldn't speak anymore. Just air escaping like a balloon with a slow leak. You're the one who needs to just shut the fuck up. I could see the pain on his face, and he whistled when he breathed, sounding like birds or flutes. Or was that the mushrooms? I didn't care. I got off of his chest. I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to let Charlie's buddies do it. They're hungry, you know. They like blood. There are a lot of critters out here that are hungry. Think of it as my public assistance, for them. He wheezed a feeble protest, and his hands twisted weakly. I was done talking. I stepped away and took my trusty pipe in hand, preparing to hit him once again. I held the pipe high over my head, but hesitated. Tied up like an animal, he wasn't awake anymore. I took his wrist in my hands and searched for a pulse. There was a beat, but it was meager. I had done enough. Tossing the pipe aside, I headed off toward the trailer. But before I left, I gathered more mushrooms. I had been afraid to go down to the truck for days. I knew what I would find, and I prayed no one else found my stepfather first. I hadn't smelled him either. That familiar stench of death. No one came to see him. No one called. He didn't get any mail. He indeed lived off the grid, and now it was obvious it was one of the things he didn't lie about. He was a missing person that no one missed at all. Just like that Dixie Chick song I liked. I wouldn't have dared to go down to the truck so soon, but the mushrooms had become an obsession. I never noticed or enjoyed the smell of flowers before. Now I craved their aroma. Soon I had eaten all the mushrooms and needed to harvest more. I hoped there was more on Charlie. Or perhaps in the underbrush by the creek. Maybe I discovered a new species or something. As I approached the junk pile, I suddenly became afraid of going on the other side. I remembered what I did, but it seemed like a dream. I actually had not really thought about him at all. Just an old elephant seal. Finally, I summoned the courage to go around the rusty hulk. As I looked down on my stepfather's body, at first I thought it wasn't him. He was severely decomposed, and portions of his head had been chewed away by critters. His eyes had been pulled out by crows. But they couldn't have caused this degree of disintegration. Standing nearly a foot high on his chest, enormous ridges of mushrooms covered his body, forming beautiful fan-like patterns and shapes. My stepfather looked like an eerie Chinese party lantern carved out of cork. Mushrooms covered every limb. They were bursting from beneath his clothing. The bones in his hands were no longer recognizable as human appendages. And his arms hung like cooked pasta in the tight ropes, the mushrooms growing around the ligatures. The colony was full and gorgeous. I reached for a piece of the fungus. After briefly chewing a piece, I felt the burn and smelled the flowers again. I smiled as I started picking off pieces of the frilly truffles. I'm sure there were others who would pay me for them. Blessings in disguise, right, motherfucker? The last 2 days were the most pleasant in recent memory. I ate his food, drank his beer, destroyed his things, and ate my mushrooms. He couldn't hurt me anymore.